Garry, so before we talk about bricks, business, and training hubs, take me back to when you were a kid. What sort of kid were you? What sort of world did you grow up in, and how did that shape you as a person?
Crikey, I think I dreamed about bricks, skills and training hubs as a kid. So I was a very happy child. I had a great upbringing, to be fair. My dad was my best friend, still my best friend today. And my mum was probably the most caring person I could ever have. So a great upbringing, big wider family, lots of fun. I think really that's what I always think about my childhood as fun. And yeah, we did lots as a family. My dad was into motorsport. He raced cars, so hot rod racing or stock car racing, as a lot of people would know it. Got brought up around that. He was a builder, so I got brought up around lots of builders. We played football together. It was just, it was a pretty good. I can't, when I think back of it, it's just real lots of happiness, really. To be fair, I'm not quite sure whether that gave me a sort of a boost as a child or anything, but I think there was a bit of a moment when I was growing up where things changed, not too dramatically, but it meant a lot to me. We moved house at 14, and I think I had a real great first sort of 14 years of my life was fantastic. Sort of living in the same area, lots of friends, really lots of friends. And it all sort of like got flipped, and we moved. And that at the time was something that really and truthfully, it was like broke my heart. Losing friends, moving schools, and I was like, really out of my comfort zone. But kind of it's worked out for everything really well, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have gone on to meet my wife, and sort of the family that I had, business, friends, meeting yourself. All these things that sort of like happen by sort of chance, choice, or whatever it is, really. So. That was when I think back on my childhood, it's really, really happy, and then a massive rock,
Can you give me one specific happy childhood memory that you think maybe shaped your early life?
It's going to be I don't know, one moment, but I used to love car racing, hot rod racing, and being involved in that as growing up, and. It's funny when I look back, I sort of born 1970, and in the 70s you had these sort of like superstars, Barry Sheen, James Hunt, sort of in everyone knew them, and I knew Barry Lee. He was the hot rod world champion, and like I suppose not many of my mates knew it, but I used to love hot rod racing, and I was lucky because my dad raced. My uncle, was pretty good, did really well. So the one moment would have probably been in amongst that somewhere, being and kind of the real happy moments of that was being with family. We used to do it as a family, and just all the laughs you had, really, So it's just having, I think it's sort of like that great upbringing allowed me to really enjoy laughter and fun, more than anything. And I guess I'm kind of known as a pretty positive person, which is not always the case. But so that childhood really helped. So I always think back to that and think how thankful I am for my parents. And also I was kind of I was expecting you might ask a little bit about my younger years, and I was thinking about this about the pivotal people in that time. So as my two nans really played a lot of part in that, and my nan, I was the eldest on that side as a grandson, and she absolutely adored me. She gave me so much confidence by telling me how wonderful I was. I don't suppose I was, but it was really meant a lot to me. So it really gave me that confidence. And then my other nan was struggling a lot because she was in Runwell probably most of the time, which is like mental health, a mental. What would be the word? Help me out, that Sam.
It would. I think they used to call it like a mental health unit. Or I think in the old days it was an asylum. Or they used to call it, didn't they?
But do you know, it really felt like that. And I used to go and visit my nan a lot then, and it was really the difference between my two nans was unbelievable. And I think that made me think a little bit about, obviously you're young, you're growing up, and I suppose when you're a kid, you should just be playing, shouldn't you? But I was seeing lots of happiness and also lots of sadness, really. And I both love both my nans equally, but it's kind of it's really weird that she'd had problems with sort of like depression and mental health, and it scared the living daylights out of me, really. But yeah, so those my nans and my family, just a great childhood, yeah.
And you're obviously, when there's light, there's also dark, and your nan, your nan who was sort of instilling that confidence within you, is giving you the light side. But obviously, how did that affect you? Sort of the dark side, if you will. And I don't want to over dramatise it too much.
No, it wasn't. You got to have balance in life, really, I guess. So I think probably it made me inquire more, about who we are as humans, I guess. And being that inquisitive, probably wanting to know more about my family roots, why my nan was in there and stuff. And it's something, that I think I was, again, thinking about this, about, you love to have that conversations with your nans, your grandparents, your older people. And it's weird that these sort of podcasts setting, which I'm a massive fan of podcasts, that one day, hopefully my grandchildren, great-grandchildren might be able to watch this, listen to this and think, oh, that's what he was on about, so, which is then a roots further back, like sort of the family tree sort of scenario. But yeah, it's kind of like, probably at the time, it used to make me wonder, maybe I would cry in fear a little bit at growing up about some things, but genuinely I was really, really happy, so, and certainly on the outside, really, really confident. I think I've always been that person that at school I was, front of the class, me sir, me miss, I'm sort of like, maybe I wouldn't say crying out for attention, but you're out there and you're like, you're just wanting to be in the middle. I've always I was probably sort of captain of all my sporting teams, all that sort of stuff at class. You sort of always want to be the leader, I guess. And I think that came definitely from the confidence from my nan. But just the encouragement. My dad as well, it's probably the one of the funniest people you'd ever meet. A real character, and it's great because he was quite young. He was about 21 years older than me when he had me. I think it was 21, and so he was like a bigger brother to me. Really, a lot of my mates always loved my dad. Like the laughs he was, and some of his humour might have gone a bit too far sometimes, but he was great. So yeah, just lots of fun. It set me up well.
And the confidence. So, do you think that you grew that? Is that something that you grew? Like, did you? Obviously, you say people around you were sort of building you up and making you become the man you sort of were set to be. But within every man who they're when they're younger, there is the way you build confidence. Did you do that sort of silently, or was it, did you do it through failure, or was it something that you just sort of grew into?
I guess there was, like I said, when we moved, I went from being this really, really confident kid in lots of friends, and then we moved. It wasn't that we didn't move that far, sort of only really 10 miles, but when you're 14, that's a big move. And it made me look a little bit more within myself, but that resilience really helped me. So I kind of went in and thought, right, not going to know anyone. Let's go and be my sort of kind of brash, confident self, see how that goes. And then I was then thinking about that, because I was like, oh, hang on, this is like a little bit harder, because you had to push back with people who's the strange kid, and so yeah, that made me. It's the resilience. It's probably the first time then on I realised what that, I wouldn't even know what that meant at the time, but that was part of a lot later journey. And I guess recently I sort of come across like philosophy of Stoicism and stuff, and the obstacle's the way. So when I look back, that's probably the first obstacle that I had in life. Sort of there was a challenge, and that made me definitely grow up very fast. But like I said, in hindsight, it was the best thing that ever happened. You think these things are going to be, how do I get through it? But it's no big drama. There's loads of people move school, loads of people move jobs or whatever it is. So it's all part of the longer plan, I guess.
This episode of the HODCAST is proudly sponsored, as always, by Site Ready Solutions, tackling the construction industry's skills gap head-on. With their innovative 4-pillar approach, attract, train, place and retain, they're not just filling positions, they're building careers and fortifying the future of construction. By introducing roles like the support team operative, Site Ready Solutions creates accessible pathways into the industry, ensuring projects have the skilled hands they need. Discover how they're shaping the next generation of construction professionals at sitereadysolutions.co.uk.
And you, I was going to get to Stoicism later. But
let's do it later.
Let's
yeah.
hit, let's hit it
you
now.
like,
No,
yeah.
let's hit it straight on. Let's
Okay.
hit it straight on. So, when you discovered it, did it become an instruction manual for the chaos of your life, or do you feel like it gave you like a permission slip to sort of let that go? 'Cause you're, just to give a bit of background, and this is why I was going to sort of work into it. But you do a lot of stuff, and you always have done a lot of stuff. We'll get into some side hustles later, but let's talk Stoicism for now, because your life is generally quite, or has been certainly generally quite chaotic. A lot of things going on, a lot of things going around in your head, and and just around you. A lot of people work for you. Like, as I said, did that become like a guide, or did it become a permission slip to sort of?
Yeah, I think it may be a little bit of a comfort, really. So I think that when you learn about Stoicism, there's probably people thinking now, well, what the hell are they going on about? Well, it's a Greek ancient philosophy, some Greek Roman times, and it's really about the choice you have. And only control what you can control. I think the temperance is a big one. Being calm, being a little bit more, less reactive. Courage. And wisdom, really, and it's allowing you, it's taking fear away. I kind of like got into it, and a little bit, I guess, probably later on, I was like, going through what sometimes I sort of talk about as a midlife crisis, which what certainly wasn't a crisis, but I was midlife. I was 50, and I was looking to change a few things in my life. And then came across this philosophy, which actually I thought, well, I've kind of known all this stuff all my life, but now I can put a little bit more to it, and did some learning with it. But really, Stoicism is about only sort of like just what can you control. If you can't control it, don't worry about it. Really, that's the simple side of things with it. But it's a little bit deeper, because it's about the fear of death, I think, a little bit, and the same memento mori, which is that tomorrow you may die, well, tomorrow you will die, really. So we know that's going to happen. So then live your life absolutely best that you've got in front of you today. So but and then the obstacles to ways is this classic one about when every failure that you have in life, it allows you to like learn from that and then move on from it and succeed. So that's something I say a lot. And if it's something bad, that's no problem at all. We're going to learn from that. We're going to make sure we don't do it again, So, it's all them little things, really. So I read, every day I read a little bit of Stoicism, and I listen to a lot of podcasts that are sort of based around that. And I would sort of advise anyone to, dig into it a little bit, find out a bit more and see how it actually, affects your life,
It's interesting that Stoicism sort of focuses on obstacles and, the barriers. So what is it that does... Because you were saying about fear, like what is it that you're afraid of? What do you fear? Or let me put it a different way. What keeps you up at night?
Well, I get sleep pretty easily, to be honest, because I'm knackered by the time I go to bed. But what keeps me up at night? I like to live life till its absolute full. And it is this. Whether there's an afterlife or what that looks like, I'm not sure. But for whilst I'm here, I'm going to live it to the full. What keeps me up at night? The fear that one day that's all going to end, I guess. So I probably lived with that fear for a few years. I wasn't very well. I had a problem with drinking for a number of years, and so every day was kind of like was it started with a hangover. And if you for any young person, listening or watching, you think, well, like drinking's great fun. Yeah, it really is. But when you do too much of it and you're hanging for, pretty much, most days of your life, that's a big waste of your time. And that made me think about what I was doing, really. And, probably talk a little bit more about, that sort of journey, how that came along. But it it puts life into perspective. You know, you're wasting a percentage of your day, and you think, crikey, I've only got so many years left or whatever. So a little bit of I had to hang up about death for a bit, and I just don't know where it came from, but and it's only like now, a few years later, you look at it. You know, there was a few sort of like some moments in my life. You know, I lost 2 cousins far too young for different reasons, and I lost my granddad. I was with my granddad when he died, and you know, it's just stuff that. Probably, you know, you don't necessarily grieve right at the time and bits and pieces, but it's that midlife thing. As a man, and being, you know, like I said, probably when I was younger and I had all that sort of, you know, centre of the attention stuff and being, you know, like being known as the lively one and, you know, the party starter, as it were, and you know, sort of behind the scenes, I was probably, you know, like a little bit, oh crikey, you know, how much can I keep this up for, you know? So you know, sort of the sense of time was running out. But listen, that's all dark and deep, but Stoicism's lightened it up massively. Positive psychology, it all came along at the same time. And I absolutely love, you know, it's the thing, I love life, Sam. You know, that's why I probably do so much, you know, whether it's in business or play, family, I just love it, you know. So, yeah, give it your absolute best shot, I guess.
And that, it's interesting. And I really like the way that I asked you about what your deepest fear was, and you told me what it was, but you also told me what drives you, which is something that I really like about you. And I, you know, some people might be watching this thinking he's got to say that because Gary's his boss. Well, fortunately, in this room, you're not.
No, listen, I think we're friends. You know, like I guess I am your boss, but I learn a lot from you, Sam. You know, so this is what I love, people. You know, I love the connection. And again, some of these words that I probably wouldn't have put this together when I was in my drinking years. You know, I guess I wasn't that different, but I can think a lot deeper now, and I really like people. You know, and that gets back to that confidence about talking to people, and really, I'm quite open to show my vulnerabilities. And you know, when we talked about doing this podcast, and we said about what it was going to be about, and you know, and the whole, you know, conversation's worth having. We want to be talking about skills. We want to try to, you know, get people to talk about their careers and their journeys. But and what we got to understand is it's not all roses for anyone. You know, there's always that balance. But be all right with that. You know, be okay with the fear. Be all right with the any darkness you got to have, and if you could put words to it. I mean, like I said beforehand, I was a little bit nervous talking to you because, you know, sometimes I've got a bit of a plan, a bit of a right. I'm going to say this, I'm going to say that. I was like, well, Sam's going to ask some really good questions. I'm not quite sure where it's going to go. And so whatever I've said so far, probably, you know, like it is what it is. But it's like I'm just going to be me, you know, be authentic, really, you know.
Yeah, and I do love that honesty. One of the things for some people won't know that I've known you literally my whole life.
That's right.
So from the day I was born, I bet that makes you feel very old, which is great. But you, I've had the fortune of knowing you forever. You know, I remember I've got great memories of us as just to give some context to that for people sort of watching or listening. You're not my dad. You went to school with my mum, and you were in the sort of friendship group that sort of all hung out together. Yeah. And I remember great times when I was younger of you and the rest taking me to like the zoo and doing loads of fun cool stuff. And but one of the things that really sticks out is, I think it was 2018 or maybe 2019. We were in, I think it was 2019. We were in, we went for, we were on holiday in Spain, and we came to your house, and you and Catherine and Ollie were there, and you put on a lovely barbecue. But we got chatting, and this is before, you know, me coming to work at GSQ and all that stuff was even a consideration. And the idea that you were just so open with me, and about your, about your alcoholism and about just how you felt, and your, you just shared with me a whole bunch of stuff that, for what I saw as a grown-up, I know that sounds really daft because I was in my 30s, you know, but a grown-up sharing with me their sort of struggle in a way that isn't like, oh, I've had such a hard life and I can't do it anymore, and this, you know, to have someone actually go, you know what, life's hard and times are hard and I've struggled, but there is always a way through the thing that we're going through. And alcoholism was one of those things that we shared about, and you were really honest. And not that many people, they are now, but they weren't then, you know, and that just, what I really want to know is what that chapter taught you about yourself, and what would you say to someone who is in it? Because you weren't in it at the time. You were sort of at the
I
end,
hadn't.
maybe.
I was probably a little bit searching for an answer at the time about alcohol, and it was. You had to put it in context that my great childhood of lots of family fun was also like my whole family would had lots to drink, and there was nothing wrong with that at all. So probably as soon as I was I'd say it would have been I was probably started drinking at 13. My first time I'd probably got drunk, but then you wasn't in my young when sort of started getting married and stuff. Them younger years of having a family, I wasn't drinking, wasn't that big a thing. But I'd drink regular, but it was kind of like it was working up. I was when we talk about my career, I was always about trying to be really what I would have seen successful, trying to earn as much money as possible. And having again lots of fun. So I'd go out a hell of a lot, in that time. In the building game, you was again brought up around about alcohol. Everything was kind of like focused around going to the pub, I guess. So drinking wasn't a bad thing for me. It was just part of my life. But I was drinking too much. It was just like it was the absolute drug effect of drinking alcohol. Because and again, it might be because of just the type of person I am. It's that sort of. You get addicted to anything you get into, I guess, for me. So it was becoming drinking. I was drinking every day, and then business was good. Got to around about 40, and I was pretty successful, and I was kind of living the dream a little bit. We then, like I said, we bought a house in Spain, and the drinking was just becoming. I was starting getting anxiety attacks, and it was around about I was around about 45, I guess, and I had a full-blown panic attack. And I was a functional. I was drinking most days, but I was having hangovers a lot, even if I wasn't drinking much. So I was drinking, 2 or 3 cans or a bottle, half a bottle of wine at a night, and I was having a terrible hangover the following day. So this mid-40s, it just was changing. I was having some gastric problems with it, and I had a full-blown panic attack, that I was like, told my wife, you need to call an ambulance, so I was having a heart attack and stuff. And this was on the back of lots of success, lots again, being that really confident person at night. But I was wasting too much time during the day. And then I found myself, we was living the dream. We'd bought a house in Spain and we was absolutely loving it. But I was searching for a way to cure hangovers, and being that really clever sod, I thought, right, I know, I drink white wine rather than red. I'll drink gin rather than vodka. Tried absolutely everything, and then one day realised that the best way was to actually try to stop. So I guess when we probably had that conversation, I do remember it. I remember it well actually, and really enjoyed that time we had together. I was probably searching for that idea at the time of what to do, but I hadn't. That was pre the moment when I realised that that the change was to quit, because I think at that time there wasn't that many guys that was actually doing it. I'd heard of I think it was Adrian Charles had done a thing on BBC about it, and it was like you thought as a bloke you think, oh, what a nutter, what's he doing? You don't drink, you don't give up drinking. That's for alcoholics. I'm not an alcoholic. I don't drink in the morning. I'm hanging in the morning, but I don't drink. So but I think also that sort of like spending a lot of time in Spain was a bit different, because I had an answer then to get over a hangover. You'd have a drink at lunchtime. A lot of Spanish guys they'll drink like a glass of brandy for breakfast. So it's a completely different culture out there. It's not so much of a binge drinking; it's just like a consistent drinking, and that was not helping me at all. And there was a few moments where, again, I was just having these anxiety attacks, and I kind of just knew I was wasting so much time. But then when I said about I love life and I want to get the most out of life every day, you sort of pull it all together. So then, crikey, I'm not, it's a long. This is me talking a lot, isn't it? But so yeah, 2020, COVID, and that summer we was in Spain a lot on our own because people couldn't travel, and I was reading a book, and it was Ollie Ollerton book. It was like one of the SAS guys, and again he said about his struggles he had with alcohol and that he gave up. And that was like, right, okay, so, blokes can do this, and then, so you dig into like, I was did a bit of research, got a podcast, Alcohol Explained, William Porter, and listened to that. And again, it was like, okay, this is not going to be such a bad thing. I'm not going to be, I haven't got to go to therapy, as it were. And then through that, I just got into thinking, right, I'm going to give up. This is going to be. So first time I hadn't done dry January, done anything like that. I thought the moment I leave Spain, I was driving back to the UK, and I thought, right, I'm going to give it a go. And 5 years later, here I am. So never had a drink since, and I absolutely love it. And it was a real game changer. And it's sort of like, it changed a lot of things in my life, but it's just made me enjoy everything I do so much more. I love my wife so much more, my family, everything about it, my business. And it wasn't like, all them things were still right with the drink, but they're far more clear for me now. And it's just enjoy everything so much more, but I could talk about being alcohol free forever, but I don't want to preach about it too much, but it's like, it's good.
Yeah. And I don't think you're preachy about it at all. Weirdly, I did know that you were sober when you'd got sober after I said got sober. That sounds really bad, doesn't it? Like you weren't an alcoholic per se, but you made the decision to not drink again. That's the thing. But I knew that, and I actually did the same thing for 2.5 years. So I was sober for 2.5 years, and actually I was having chats in the office every now and then, just about, hey, how's it? Are you still? Yeah, same. And it wasn't a preachiness about it. It was like it's just life, right?
Yeah, no, listen, I had tried moderating a bit before, but what I was doing then when I was drinking, the binges were getting harder and the hangovers were getting worse. So it's that. I think everyone is going to come at a time in their life where they either carry on as they are or they make that change, And I think, again, that might have been that whole thing about when we moved school when we was younger, that that change, you don't fear the change. And I like change, that's what I like to do in business. I like to challenge everything that's out there. If I don't like something, I'm not going to go and moan about it. I want to go and change it. And I think that's probably also that gave me that extra assurance that that's doable from giving up alcohol, because it's bloody hard, like if you're... It's just that absolutely the drug side of it, and you don't realise the benefits that come. So I got into Andy Ramage became a big mentor of me, and he was the guy that was involved in 1 year no beer, and really started following him, and that's again he got me into the positive psychology really, and it was the way he used to say about that the magic comes around about 100 days. There's no definitive day, but you get to that, and it really is. It's just this most amazing feeling of like, right, that's it, I'm through it. And you just feel so good, the energy. So it's not that you're just not hanging, I could function on hangovers. It wasn't too bad, obviously, but once the anxiety went and some depression I was suffering with as well, everything became much more powerful. You really, like the word gratitude, like what does it mean? So, and you think like, you're just grateful of everything, just like birds tweeting, squirrels running across the garden, you stop getting angry when people cut you up at a roundabout and stuff. It's just all these sort of things that you think, wow, why did I live with that for so many years? So, I'm not going to ever have any regrets, because we had lots of fun with them drinking years and some really crazy party times that we had with it. But I wish I did quit a little bit earlier, I guess, But hey ho, let's live the best we can from here on out,
Yeah, and I think you say you appreciate your family more. And you have got an incredible family. Obviously, I've known your wife Catherine for, she's
probably longer. Yeah, same
or longer. And there's sometimes I feel like she's my mum. You know what I mean? These days I certainly see her more than I see my mum. But you have an incredible family, and you all work together. So your three sons, or your wife, your three sons, all, your wife, people don't know actually. And I think she's also the managing director of the company, and people don't, they ring up the office and they're talking rubbish to the person on the phone, and they're like, you need to just be a little bit careful about that. But how do you deal? I couldn't be in a work environment with my family. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I'm kind of really lucky in that respect, and I'll come back onto my wife in a minute and how important she is and how wonderful she is. But I when I started out, so my dad was a builder. All his families, like brothers and stuff, were builders, and they, even though they were a close family, they all worked apart. And I often used to wonder, again, think back to childhood, you think like, how did that? Why don't they all work together a little bit? It didn't. With our family, it was and the boys. I didn't sort of like say to them, right, you must come and join the business. They kind of all wanted to, which was really nice. And again, when I said about that link about my dad being my best friend, and again, how wonderful my mum was, and you just, with your kids, you just want to be everything to them. And so, very lucky, 3 wonderful boys, and growing up, they all got on really well. They got on with us, and it's about being family, but just being friends, really. I think, and my wife Catherine is she's so solid. She's just like absolutely, the bestest mum ever and the bestest wife. And when I said about the family getting better, it's just like I think you just appreciate people and it's that gratitude. And because you've got more time to not be, if you're not hanging, you're spending time with your kids, I guess. And that, again, going back to that, there was a moment there where I remember my youngest son Ollie. He needed me to take him somewhere at a birthday party or something, and he would have been probably 10 or 11 at the time, and I was too drunk to drive. This was at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock that night. I wasn't. This was from maybe the night before. There was no way was I driving. And then you think like, wow, how poor is that? So that changed things. But they're great working with family and working with yourself and everyone else that works for us become friends. I think that's what we kind of set up. There might be moments where there might be some little disputes might mean a little bit more because it's family and there might be crikey, but it's to me there's no challenges working with family. I love it, and you can trust your family and trust your friends. So anyone that comes to work for us and works within the business, so it doesn't matter whether you're working out on site or working in our office. I want that sort of like, that sort of setup that we all become friends, really,
And it is, to be honest, it is more like family, you become, you've got other businesses now, but when you join, when I joined GSQ, it takes a little while, but then you sort of become part of the GSQ sort of functional / dysfunctional family. It's like, there's a functional element to it, but it also, as every family, there is some amount of dysfunctional.
There's some characters in the wider family, that's for sure. And the ones that are not blood related to us. So, but I think it's like family life, business life, fun life is all the same to me. I don't, going to work. It's not. I love work. I love being at home. I love work. There's just no real difference, So having a family around me in both places, it means it's brilliant, So there are times I think where we as a family at weekends or stuff we might say like, let's not talk about work now because there'll be stresses in work because there's always challenges when you're running a business, and so there might be a time where we go, look, let's draw a line on that. But to me, it's like it doesn't matter whether I'm in the workplace or at home. I try to be the same person, really.
You're a bricklayer. I mean, some people will argue about what sort of bricklayer you are, how good you are, how much you like. But fortunately / unfortunately, I guess you'd love to get your hands on the tools a bit more, I guess. But then equally, you wouldn't get to connect with as many people as you connect with on a daily basis. But I just want to pick at the idea that there are so many younger people today, whether they be 16, 18, 21 years of age, who are a bit lost. You're fortunate that you found a trade. You came through, with your dad and as part of his gang. But what did that give you beyond just a way of making money?
It gave me the opportunity to making money. I suppose now I'm not so bothered about money, but certainly as a career choice, it was all about money, I guess. And my dad, growing up, and so going back to when I was lucky that he was, I got brought up around brickwork, I guess. So everyone, again, great childhood memories of all what I used to think of. They were my uncles, but they weren't. They were just blokes that worked for my dad. But again, probably because of the way he used to set it up, with being really good friends. In there, like they were just friends of the family and uncles, and I was really attracted to be a bricklayer because of the banter. I think the fun. But my dad always said to me, look, if you get this, if once you've learnt this trade, you will have a job forever. and that's kind of like that stuck with me massively, and it's been true because I've not always been a bricklayer. I've done various different things, but come back to bricklaying. And you do, once you've learned that skill, learned that trade, you have got that job forever. But there would have been a time when it's helped me. It's helped me certainly make some money. I've spent a lot of money as well, but it's given me everything. Having that trade really, it's given me a job for life. And I think where we're now involved in training and trying to get more people that opportunity to have the opportunity I had. I said just because I was kind of born into it, it shouldn't be the only way you fall into becoming a bricklayer. It's a great opportunity for everyone out there that's looking for that. If you're now thinking, right, what am I going to do? Kind of follow our lead and get a trade and sort of go and do something with your life. So it's a great opportunity out there.
We're going to touch on the training side of things
a
little bit later. I don't want to get there yet because I know that people are watching and waiting to hear what you say about training. But most people master a trade and just stop there. What is it that made you, I guess, maybe gave you the courage or the restlessness to go and, sort of build something of your own? Because you could have just, I say just being a bricklayer. There's not being a bricklayer, but you made something of your own.
Yeah, no, I like, sometimes I say to people, I'm just a bricklayer. And that wasn't, and people go, oh, that's nothing wrong with that. And that's, well, no, that's what I'm saying is, we're all just something, if you like, But I guess I identify as a bricklayer because that was my trade. But I always had side hustles. And again, it goes back to, probably them of having, great childhood with lots of, interests. And so you want to do more than one thing, And also I might have wanted to be a hot rod racer. I also wanted to play football or, make lots of money or whatever that be. So I remember my first job actually was, I was working in Asda pushing trolleys when I was 15. I wasn't actually allowed to work there until I was 16, but I lied, so I'm quite good at that, actually, blagging it a bit, And then I worked in a pub when I was 16, and I wasn't allowed to work there until I was 18, So I actually learned, thinking back, I was learning to lay bricks and I was working in a pub at the same time, which is probably, that's why I probably never sleep. But so when I left school at 16, it wasn't, probably was, at the time I was actually wanting to be a teacher. And then I realised I didn't earn a lot of money. So, followed what my dad said, become a tradesman. And then once I learned to lay bricks, that late 80s, there was all of a sudden, there was a real big downturn in our industry. And I had to think, right, my dad actually sort of like had no work for me for a bit, and he had lots of people work for him. And, he had to all of a sudden, they had no work, scaffolds were coming down. It was all looking pretty scary out there. And again, he sort of says to me, look, son, you're just going to go and find your own work, go and have a little scout around. And I was going around sites looking for a start, and there wasn't much around. So I thought, right, what am I going to do? Well, and I was massively into music, really. And I'd grown up, it's another big passion of mine. I was, into the early hip hop and stuff, and I was building a bit of a record collection, and I started DJing and stuff like that. I probably DJed my first time I got paid for a bit DJ would have been around about 16. And so that was alongside with my bricklaying. And I was enjoying bricklaying, absolutely loved it. And but decided when I was around about sort of 20 that to quit and open up a record shop. And again, that was something I was doing with my dad. We was doing record fairs together. We were selling vinyl, and I was doing a bit of DJing. And it was probably, like I say, it was a side hustle to the bricklaying. But I thought, right, let's give this a go, sort of follow that dream. And the relevance to all of this really is that I did that for sort of 7 or 8 years, and it was pretty successful. Like in that time, we got involved in promoting raves and reggae stuff and all that sort of like lifestyle. It's fantastic. But also that's when I met my wife and we got married. We had kids, and all of a sudden, it's like, thinking, right, there's a little bit more to life than selling records. I want to go and earn some money and build something, to really go and be successful, I guess. And went and just walked back on a building site and look for a start. It was starting to get a bit busier at the time. And, tested what my dad said. You've got a trade, go and use it. And walking back on site and looking for a start, and we just literally randomly walked onto a job and said, "You got to start, mate." And he said, "Yeah, no worries at all." And I looked around and I thought, like, wow, this ain't that hard laying bricks. You know, it was like, it was actually, it was less stressful than waiting for someone to come in the shop to buy a record from you, if you like. It was weird, you know, you had these different pressures now because you was having kids. And I love being back outside, and it was like, yeah, it just felt really comfortable to be back on site. And I remember them early days now when I look back, and there was a lot of people, and I thought they were probably, you know, they were stealing the living a little bit. You know, they were sort of like trying to, you know, maybe not working as hard as I would, and again, maybe work ethic. You know, probably being brought up around my dad and seeing, you know, that his work ethic. That if you're on site, you know, you got to get down and get get some lay some bricks and do a hard day's work. It wasn't hard to me. You just wanted to go and do that, and I worked out quickly that I could earn good money doing this. You know, there was overtime, there was Saturdays. You know, if you worked a Saturday shift, you can go home at lunchtime, full shift, and for that point, and it was just all about making money and being kind of like looking at. I think, you know, that nice upbringing where my dad done reasonably well. You know, he had nice cars, nice house. My uncles and my friends, you know, my friends at the time were all doing pretty well. A lot of them had gone to the city and were doing well in life. You know, and I think, right, I've got to raise my game here a little bit. You know, go and build something. So I had that real. It wasn't just about earning some money for today. It was like what I could do tomorrow. You know, I want to go and. I want to better myself every day, and I think that was, you know, so, you know, I was quite young at the time, but, you know, that was it was embedded into me then, right, how can I be a success, right, I want to be the supervisor, I want to be the charge hand, I want to be the foreman, I want to be the contracts manager, and I went on a journey there, really, that I worked my way through that business, and, you know, within 10 years, which is quite a long time, but, you know, a lot of effort went into it, and I was pretty much then running the company for the guy I was working for, and I was really interested in trying to buy it off him. You know, I was being quite successful, was well paid, and that was my what I thought my journey was. I was going to buy the business and live happily ever after. And then I walked into his office and he made me redundant, and I didn't see it coming. You know, and it was, and honestly at the time, Sam, it was like I was absolutely flying. You know, this is 2008. And I'd been really well paid. I had a lovely sort of company truck, and I had all paid holidays. Was looked after, you know, and everything was flying. But 2008, there was a big recession, and like I say, my old boss, and like I say, you know, he was fantastic, but he was getting that point where I think he was looking to wind the business down, and obviously I was quite costly for him. So yeah, maybe redundant, and that was a big moment for me. That was as low as it can be, you know, because you're thinking, right, you've got a big mortgage, 3 kids, you know, and you know, that pressure. Like I said, all my friends were all successful, you know, all doing really well. So I guess at that point I was used to having nice holidays and stuff, you know, and I still had the side hustle selling records at the time. I was still doing a bit of early sort of stuff on the internet and bits and pieces, but wow, my life was, you know, really rocked at that point.
And at what point was it that you decided that you were going to, instead of just doing it for you were going to then do it for others?
Well, so that was, you know, that was a big change in that moment, because I went from, you know, like I said, being what I thought was quite successful to being, like, at that point there was nothing about the others. This was about me and trying to start again. And again, really now, my wife was everything, because you know, she was like, look, just why are you feeling sorry for yourself? Get out there and go again. You know, you've got this sort of thing.
I can hear Catherine saying those exact words right now.
That is, like, at the time, you know, you really want that solid person behind you. Just say, look, you know, she's not one to feel sorry for me. She's going to push me and go, look, you got this. You go and do it. And because I was probably, I'd had a lot of good people working for me in that company, and I had good contacts, so just worked my black book, make a few phone calls, and I quickly found some work very quickly, and, you know, just 2 and 1, just started to just me and another bricklayer, and he had actually been someone I trained previously. He'd been an apprentice of mine, so it was just me and him. We had a real good bond. We went and picked up some work, and then there was 2 of us, that became 4, that became 6. And I guess, you know, it was like that low moment made me even stronger, because, and again, when I found out what the obstacles, the way it meant, it was like, that was real, the bit that my pivotal moment. And, you know, we get on to to helping others, which is again pretty much something I've always liked doing, but probably couldn't think about why I was doing it. I grew my business through bringing people on and trying to look for their strengths, and like their strengths were the bits that the bits I didn't want to do, you know. So I brought people on that thinking, right, well, they're really good at, they might be the ones that could build all the fancy corners, and it allowed me to go and talk to people, whatever that would be. So you're building a team of people, and then you've got that allows you to then help the youngsters that were working with you, and maybe spend some time with them. I was learning that I was really enjoying helping other people. Maybe going back to that thing about what my nan, you know, that sort of like, well done, Gary, well done, that, you know, and you get that. So you're helping people, and you get that you know, sort of people thanking you for doing it, and grew the business really through bringing good people on and training people. You know, something that we grew the business through.
And you have a like a motto almost, a together we can motto. And
yeah.
You know, we've sort of touched on it a little bit, you know, the idea of bringing a team together, but what does that mean for you? Like, where did that come from?
So I guess that it came from when I left the record shop and went working for his name was Brian Lever, so you know, anyone that remember him, he's great bricklayer in Subby. Working with him, and also knowing that as a bricklayer I needed a really good odd carrier, and I was quite young at the time where I was running a job, you know, like, and I was chucked in pretty much deep end. I've always been, you know, go straight in, take the challenge. And so, you know, I was probably 26, 27, and I was running, quite a few people, and the odd carriers were everything for me, because, firstly, they looked after me. I was working in Basildon, and it was a pretty tough environment to be in around. Brutal on a building site. You know, you got to be back in the day. It was. Thankfully, it's changed now, but back then there was a lot of it was kind of pretty brutal place to build inside, you know. So you had to be big and strong, and so I built people around me that were big and strong, if you like, and they looked after me in more ways than one. But as building a team of bricklayers at the time, or a gang as we knew them, you know, you needed really strong odd carriers and good people around me. I had a guy, Jerry, that worked with me as a bricklayer that was, you know, really experienced, and I learned the team dynamic, how important it was. So when I set up my own business up, I knew I had to bring on people that were like really work with as a team, and just that whole togetherness. That's what I always wanted to encourage, really. And that's where it comes from. You know, it comes from just like you can't do it on your own. You know, just like if you can have people alongside you that can help you, it makes you stronger.
This episode of the HODCAST is brought to you by our friends at Grayson Building Products, the UK's #1 supplier of masonry sundries. With over 50,000 products in stock, award-winning service, and a heritage dating back to 1921, Grayson's expert team makes sourcing the right facade products stress-free. They don't just supply, they innovate, partnering with contractors to create smarter solutions for the real challenges on site. Grayson, built on values, driven by service. Visit grayson.gb.com to find out more.
So we've been all through the houses to get to where we are right now. So what are you doing right now? What excites you? What's driving you at the moment, and what does that look like? I know that, you know, I'm hoping you're going to talk about new companies and things that you're starting, but really we can talk about that after. But what I want to know is what drives you right now and how that is manifesting.
Yeah. So right now it's about starting a new business. So Site Ready Solutions is my big baby at the moment, which I'm working on. But again, it came from that period of when I was, you know, really at sort of my peak success, about, you know, house in Spain, fast cars, doing really well, you know, money in the bank, doing really well. That I was looking for something, you know, that I needed a new challenge, I guess, and you build this business which is really successful and you know, doing really well, but there was kind of something that I needed to do a little bit more, really, and that came again from that period of like looking about what was going to be valuable to me going forward, and I wanted to help other people, and I wasn't quite sure what that looked like, really, you know, and I guess I'd worked out that I'd been helping a lot of people anyway, you know, through the business, and I just thought, right, how can I do this a little bit more, and do it in a way where, you know, you can do some stuff for charity, which is fantastic, but, you know, could I do it really, you know, that can help build my business, and, you know, something I'm really keen to do, and by helping others really, you know, and that led me, you know, so it's quite a long journey to get to where we are with Site Ready, but it's, you know, we set this new business up, and it's like, I'm lucky really with my main business in GSQ that it runs itself, because I've got a great team of people around me. You know, like I said, my three sons are like big part of that, but got some really good senior management team as well, and, you know, yourself with the stuff you do for us. It's great. They kind of do it without me, you know. I have to get involved obviously a lot, and I enjoy it, but I want to go and do something else, you know. And it's like probably about that. We can't live forever, but we can build a bit of a legacy, you know. So I've, you know, got skin in the game there, because my three sons, you know, can we build a team of people around them that's going to be take it on for them? Yeah, I can, you know, and that's what, you know, go and do it. And I think what I said before about, you know, rather than moan about stuff, I like to go and do it myself. So that's what excites me, really, going and creating something new, you know. So yeah.
So talk to me about Site Ready Solutions, because that is your baby at the moment, like the big thing that you're sort of doing. And what is it about that is different to anything else that's happened before? Because it's quite a disruptive. I see it as quite a disruptive thing. I don't know what the word is, but it's quite disruptive to the industry, if you will.
I guess
and quite revolutionary too.
Yeah, well, look, it's come a long way, because, and again, you know, it comes actually, the term Site Ready came, my wife, it came back in 2011, I think it was. And it came really from that journey of building the business, and we was employing a lot of people. We was very busy in and around London at the time, and, you know, the way we was having a lot of trainees and apprentices that were coming to us, that would either like from clients, or we was doing a deal with a college, and they were coming to us, they just weren't ready for site at all. You know, they just were so unready. It was crazy. And I think, you know, I came from that era where a lot of people could just get a job because they knew someone, and, you know, you just walked on a site, you know, you'd almost find a job in a pub somewhere and you go and get a job tomorrow. And because you was working alongside tradespeople that knew their trade, you learned a lot quicker. It was always the best way for me. It was the best way to learn was on site. And at this time, you know, there was a lot of colleges that were training bricklayers, and they weren't training in the right way. And so that's where the name Site Ready came from. And the concept was that we wanted to train people to be ready for site, you know, as soon as they came, almost, you know. And at the time, we thought, right, we're going to maybe do a separate business there in training, and we got involved a little bit, and we met a few people, and we actually spent some money to set up a little training hub back then. But all of a sudden, the way it was in London, there was a lot of Eastern Europeans coming to work, and it was far easier to do it that way. You know, they brought a great work ethic, and, you know, they're great people, you know, so a lot of them was employing a lot of Eastern Europeans, and we never, you know, we paid them exactly the same we pay anyone else, you know, and it wasn't, you know, it didn't really matter. To be honest with you, I don't care where you come from in the world. I'm a citizen of the world, really, so I really don't care. But it's like, yeah, if you want to come and work, you got to work, you know. And I think if you look at it back then, you know, you would have never really took someone from college, because they were just, you know, they were poor. And that's nothing to, you know, there's so many great people within college space that train really well, but just the way it was, they just didn't understand what to be a bricklayer. So that sat with me for quite a while. And then we was working last couple of years, we've been getting busier again, and we've taken on some more apprentices and trainees. And again, this whole giving up alcohol, finding about positive psychology, stoicism, helping others, it all sort of came together and thought, right, what can I do? What's the goal left in life, you know? Go and make more money, go and spend more money, you know, get more cars and more properties or whatever. And you know what, that brings more pressure, because it comes with a lot of cost, you know. You've got to go and sit on that, do that rodeo every time, you know. So I thought, no, I'm going to do something different, and we're going to get this Site Ready thing, we're going to make it work. So alongside other people, and, you know, sort of a really good friend of mine who works in the business, Keith. So it's like, again, you know, he's not family, but he feels like family to me, you know. When he come and joined the business, it was like he really got it. He really got that this frustration about training. He come from a different background in banking and stuff where, like, again, if you do that, if you get into them jobs, you kind of have to go and do an interview for a job. In bricklaying, you just walk on a job and, get a job tomorrow. So through his friendship, we set up Site Ready Solutions, and we want to challenge really what's out there a little bit, and bring people to site being ready to work from day one and being productive. We talk about being obviously safety. I know I shouldn't do, but I take health and safety for granted, and that I really don't, because it's number one. It's absolutely everything. But we bring people that are absolutely safe to work from day one, but they need to be productive. They need to understand what they're going to do, and I think in that the big bit is that you need to be then talking to the people and getting them to understand why they want to be on site a little bit, really. So it's lots of different ways of doing it, but it's. I think I probably haven't summed it up very well there, what Site Ready is, really, But
tell me what does it look like now? What are the nuts and bolts of what Site Ready is at this moment in time, and maybe what it will be in a year's time?
Okay, so to tell you a little bit more about why this is the right time for Site Ready is through GSQ, we've been training people for many years, and a few years ago was working with the NHBC, or when they set up their training hubs, and we was again out of the back of COVID, was working with a company, we're doing some apprentices locally, and sadly they got put into receivership as the company, the training provider. So we was looking for another training provider, and the NHBC, they set these training hubs up. And they were training bricklayers that were going to be ready for site after like a 5-week accelerated learning block in a training hub, and it was like a site-like environment. It wasn't a college, and that again probably made me think about what Site Ready could be. So it was because it was felt very much like a site, and they were doing real hands-on training, very much like it would be for bricklayers. That was thinking, right, that's perfect way of teaching bricklayers. And so GSQ started putting our apprentices with the NHBC, and in the last couple of years we put some the training hub they got in Cambridge, and was getting great results. We was putting a lot of time into ourselves. We got our own training manager as well, which was helping. So I could see the potential of what we could do with these people, and really it was like. We looked at it as a business side of things. We thought, right, how get people out on site? What do we need them to be? And it's like we need them to be productive. So it's not going to cost us lots of money, I guess, but also they need to be productive, because it's like for them, it's like why do they want a job? And you start talking to people and they realise that whilst they might want a job because they've got to go and earn some money. Maybe their parents say you got to go and get a job. But these people are really keen to be their own success, really, to go and earn some money as quickly as possible. And I think that's where this whole thing about leaving school and going to college and maybe going into debt or whatever that looks like is it's not great, And this is where the opportunity of going and getting a job and earning money as quickly as possible, I think it's something a lot of young people are really keen to do. We're in this world where you've got all the social media with influencers and stuff, and this fast track to success. That somehow we've got to try to give that people that opportunity. So when we're talking to young people that wanted to become bricklayers, you ask them, why do you want to be a bricklayer? And not many of them say, oh, get a trade, I've got a job for life. They want to say, I want to earn some money. They've seen Super Trowel, they might have seen Charlie Collison, and this great opportunity to go and earn some money. So we thought, right, okay, let's talk to the people about it and let's find out how that can be done. So we looked at it and said, right, if you can lay X amount of bricks, you're going to earn the money, and then you've got to sort of show them how it's done, really, And laying bricks is not hard. Once you've learned, it's not about laying 1,000 bricks a day. Really, it's about laying one brick. You just need to be able to lay one brick correctly. And I think that's again probably there's a problem with in the college the way it's set up is, and this is like. There's so many great people that are working in colleges. We go round. So I'm not having a go, but it's just like. The way you got maybe 30 students and two tutors, by the time you get back round to teaching someone, it's just not that they've picked up so many bad habits, And laying bricks is about good habits. It's about not having bad habits, really, and being able to lay one brick right, because it's just simply one brick on top of two on top of one. It's that simple. So we work with bricklayers to sort of get them to understand that, get them to lay that one brick right. It's about the quality, not about the quantity. But then you've got to add the quantity onto that quality, I guess. So our target has always been that when they come to site, that they can lay 150 bricks a day, which is not scary. That's like one brick every 3 minutes, as it were. It's a real easy. It gives them, once you do it that way as well, it gives people confidence. And it goes back to what I said about my confidence. That's why I encourage people to be their most confident self they can. And it's like we've taught lots of people to lay bricks. I really engage with the training hubs with the NHBC, and really we want to get as many bricklayers to come through as I can. So via that allowed us to look at it and think, right, where can we get more people to come through? And within GSQ, we've got around about 250 bricklayers at any one time, and we've got a lot of trainees and apprentices, and I'm kind of maxed out there. We can't we grow the business, and we are growing GSQ, but it's like maybe I can help some other people. So working very closely with the NHBC, that allowed me to think, right, how can I help this space a little bit more? And there's still stuff that needs to be helped there, because the way the apprenticeship system works, that you need an employer, and it's not easy. A lot of employers have lost trust in the system. So we set up Site Ready Solutions and thought, right, let's do it differently. Let's work slightly different than what the NHBC are doing, because they're training bricklayers. And I want to train people differently. So we're going to train. We set up a thing called support team operatives. And we're training people entry level. So this is like pre-apprenticeship space, bringing people that are doing what we were traditionally known as the labourers or hod carriers. So they do some of the jobs that they do, but we also teach them the basics of bricklaying, being confident with a trowel in their hand, being able to roll muck, being able to put muck on a wall, as it were, but also doing all the ironing, all of the finishing, making sure the presentation work's done. And that allows them to come to site being ready to be productive from day one. And then that start their career journey before becoming a bricklayer. So we're training people, and we train people in just 2 weeks to get them ready for site. We take people from any background, any age. Hopefully we want people working locally. There's a big focus on that for us. But we'll teach people the basic skills and be ready for work. And we got plans to bring lots of people ready for work, find lots of employers. There's talent out. There's so much talent out there in people. We need to match it with the opportunities, really. So that's what I'm doing. There's lots of. We said about the change and being a disruptor. I want to disrupt because it's broken, and this being involved in this space and the skills gap, which is obviously very prevalent. A lot of people talk about the skills gap, and we looked at it and we thought, right, what does that actually mean? And if you think about the gap, there's 3 main areas we need. We got people, and there's lots of people, and we got skills, and there's lots of good ways of teaching skills. But the employers part of it is the big gap. They've lost faith. Like I said, that we need to close the gap, connect those 3 parts, and then we won't have a skills gap, I guess. So.
And how do you? There are 2 things I want to cover. The first one was going to be if I wanted to join you, how would I do it? But let's stay with the lack of trust or with employers. How's Site Ready going to change that? How do you envisage employers coming? What's the difference between you and anyone else?
I think I don't blame employers for not having the trust. I mean, if you're running a business or you're an employer, it's tough. You've got to survive. Before you thrive, you've got to survive. And you've got to invest. So if you got a choice, you either like say put an advert out to take someone on. It's the easy way, I guess, or go and spend some time and invest into people. And I think that scares people. But I've kind of shown within GSQ that it doesn't cost any money, and you can make money in that space. So that's where I'm out there to show people the opportunity. If you're in the building game, you have to pay into a levy with a CITB. which it's like it's there. You're not gonna, it's not gonna change. So we can moan about it, or we can go and do something about that. And I think what we've shown is we can get our levy back by training people. And when you can start making money out of training, bringing people, making your business more successful, it's a no-brainer. So I'm always, I spend a lot of time obviously engaging with young people, helping people training, but I'm also doing a lot of stuff with employers to show them, look, this is a great way of doing it. And I think if I can bring people to work being productive, they're not gonna turn people down for doing that, are they? And it's just getting that trust, really. And we've been. I think we're getting there. There's this time. There's the timing now a little bit where we've got the new government is talking about the amount of homes we're going to build, and we need to build homes. There's a real big problem with homelessness and people that it's really scary that we need more homes. There's a big NIMBYism, this pushback about we don't houses being built locally, but building houses brings jobs and brings growth, and we need that as a country. So again, I can moan about it, or I can go and try to do it. And we're going to. We want to get as many people out into the workplace as possible. So Site Ready Solutions is initially starting in bricklaying, but we hope to move into other areas. But if we can bring people to site productive, why wouldn't you take people? It's productive. But also what you're paying for the person. It's like there is. When we go back to when you ask someone how much they want to earn, if they turn around and say, well, I want to earn £200 a day, you've got to tell them, well, you've got to lay X amount of bricks to be able to do that, and then from a standing start, there's obviously that challenge. So that's why we said about offering, let's lay that one brick right, get up to being a number. But in the role we've created, this support team operative, you can be productive very well for the amount of money that you're going to be being paid. And I think there's lots of people that are at colleges now that are training to be bricklayers or want to get into construction. That if they come and work for us, the chances of them being disengaged is less because they can get to being paid quickly. And then out in the workplace, what we try to do is we match them with mentors, which is massively important. This is again when we look at the word Site Ready Solutions. The original Site Ready was about, that was what we said, we get people, to site being ready. The solution is the mentorship that you add to it, the on-site training, working with people that are good at what they do, and you're just going to learn working with alongside them people. That's kind of the secret, really.
And what does a good mentor look like? Because there'll be people watching or listening to this podcast, and they might be thinking, this is all very well and good, and I love what you're saying, and of course I want to be more productive, and I want to earn more money in my company, and I want all this stuff. But as a mentor, what do they look like, and is it hard?
It's not hard at all. It's not. It's the most rewarding thing going. It's as a bricklayer, and a modern day bricklayer is that it's not hard out on site to actually to earn some money. And as much as there's a lot of haters out there, there's a lot of people that moan how tough it is for a bricklayer. But these days, you got profiles. You can set up. The buildings are designed in a way that they're not that challenging to build. So a little bit of preparation, go there and set your corners up. But if I'm a bricklayer, I want someone with me to help me. As that. Again, I call them younger people, but a lot of our trainees and apprentices are older. They don't have to be young, but it's like that extra set of hands. So as a bricklayer, you've got someone that you've got 4 hands rather than 2. And then if you treat that person with that's there to help you, you're going to help them massively. So it's not that challenging. When we talk to our mentors, we say, look, the biggest thing I need you to do is just to be there to be that guide. That little bit of that bit of extra wisdom that you can help someone with, and. If you're training, you have got to understand that mentor's everything for you. You're going to learn so much from that person. So it's not that complicated. And I know a lot of the whole concept of what we're trying to do is big in itself, but each little step is very simple. Match someone that's, like I said, that's really keen with someone that's really experienced. It's that simple. And I think we have to do it now because, and when we go back to the employers, employers have got a choice now. That we either invest in people or you're going to pay a hell of a lot more money for less people that are out there. One in bricklaying terms, 1 in 5 are over 50, and there is as we're getting older, it gets a bit. It's quite the bricklaying's a physical job. So what we're going to do, we're going to drop off, but you're not going to bring anyone through. So maybe that 1 in 5 that are 50 plus have got a great opportunity to mentors for the next people coming through. So, that's once we've solved the skills gap crisis, or we've helped solve it, I really want to work a hell of a lot with getting more people coming through as mentors, So, that's an area I'm really keen to work with.
And is there like a secret sauce that you've sort of made in the sort of the flow of that? Because I've seen some stuff on your social media and on your LinkedIn and stuff like that where you sort of have this sort of method that you're going to work through. Can you talk a little bit about that, or is that really a secret sauce?
Site Ready Solutions. So we got 4 pillars, I guess, and it's becoming kind of 5. But attract, train, place, and retain. And each one has got their most their own identity. But I guess the place and the retain bit is our special bit. There's that's the bit, sort of setting ourselves out a little bit. Then we're not just a 2-week course. This is like, or we're not just about. If it was just about getting a CSCS card, we'd have solved this ages ago with money. So it's the place and retain bit. I think is our key bit. And we can place people because we're confident they're productive, and then that retainment is about upskilling, I guess. So we want to get them through. Get them out on site as quickly as possible. Get them to really understand the opportunities that are out there with this career journey. So, we've been sharing, via the HODCAST and before this HOD Talks that we've been sharing our socials about, getting people that have walked the walk, that have sort of like been successful or not, just had a career in our industry, in our sector, to tell them how it worked for them, because we was all 16 once, we all started that journey, and we've all got different levels of success, and my success is, is just what it is, but it's that opportunity is there for so many people to follow. So we're really keen to do that. So that goes back to the attract part, show people how kind of like, what a great opportunity it is, train people in the right way, look at why training was done badly and like challenge that, and then that place and retain is the bit, I suppose, that we're going to do, and inspire, so that's probably the 5th pillar. I want to inspire more people, influence more people, and I'm very lucky because of the last few years working again. The NHBC of working with them again gave me real good confidence that they kind of like they liked my voice, I guess. I started working and I got opportunities to join a few different boards and bits and pieces and use my influence. So influence the influencers for me. It's getting in, talking to people, finding out what they want in the room, which kind of weirdly takes me back to my DJ days, playing a record that everyone likes, so just trying to find out what people want, and we all want the same thing. If you're a house builder, you want to build houses and sell the best, build a real good top quality house and be able to sell it for a good price. And what we're trying to do is we're going to bring people through that are building absolute quality first at a good price, but also earn well out of it, so it's like, and the people we're working with, so whether we're working with councils, local councils that have, obviously, they want to look after the people that are voting them in, so, we're really wanting to source local labour wherever we're working. It's a win-win, Sam,
I love it. I love the idea that someone who wants a job can have a job, and if they don't know much, they can be part of Site Ready Solutions. They can be taught for a couple of weeks before they go out on site what the expectations are to be on site. Then you can place them with someone who you can place them with someone who is going to teach them over a prolonged period of time as their mentor, and then in a year, 2 years' time, they might become a mentor themselves to then mentor the next.
So we got a cunning plan, and again, it comes from that team dynamic, and there's a few moving parts in our plan, but our training is done in a very much a team dynamic as well. So when we don't have teachers train, we have coaches, and we call them construction coaches. We encourage them when they're training together. We're doing very small cohorts, and we work as a team in the training space, because we're trying to say to people when they're going on site, this is that whole team dynamic, and when we place, they're going to be always place with a mentor, you know, and it's not just one mentor. It's like, you know, we have a secondary mentor in case they don't turn up for the day. And it's about that team dynamic. So it's about you coming through at entry level and working your way through that team to becoming the mentor of the future. But what within GSQ now, some of our apprentices that have gone through, and when they qualify, we encourage that next level. You know, we call it pro level, and that's about further progression, productivity, and becoming professional. And why I believe in our current cohort of apprentices that have just recently qualified, I think within a year, 2 years, they're going to be they're all going to be mentors. And they're also more relatable, so they're relatable role models for young people coming through. It's going to give them the confidence, and that's going to shake this industry up. You know, it's like, you know, again, we've got, and I'm sure there'll be bricklayers now that go, here he's going again now, you know, like, you know, but it's like, there's too many dinosaurs in this industry that are just like, keep moaning about how tough it is, you know. Oh, we got, you know, it's changed, you know. Well, the industry's changing, but you're either going to change with it, or you're like the dinosaurs did, you die, you know. So it's like, let's train people in a different way. Let's empower them to be successful, and let's make sure we work as a team. So, you know, that's what we're going to do. You know, Site Ready Solutions, we got big plans. And it's tough, Sam. It's tough pulling this. It's the biggest challenge for me, you know, of actually pulling this all together. But when you said earlier about together we can, I can't do this on my own, you know. But so I'm working with, you know, all stakeholders to make sure this works. So, you know, major house builders, CITB, the government, local councils. We've got to work together to do this. And you know, I'm not going to make any money in this space. This is not about money. This is about, you know, like I said, giving something back. You know, I'm sure my business will do all right out of it because, you know, we'll get lots of great trainees and apprentices coming through that space. But this is about being together as a team, you know. So that, again, I really enjoy it. But it's, you know, it's still tough though, Sam. It's like there isn't a, you know, there is that you've got to. I could be seen as a threat to other employers, so I've got to try to change that. You know, that sort of people to understand that I'm doing this for the right reasons. I'm doing it for other people as much as myself. But I've also got to think about myself in that and what that means. You know, that when we said about looping back to how we started this, when we talked about time and how much time we have left, you know, I want to live today absolutely with every bit of best intention to enjoy today, knowing that tomorrow might not happen, if you like, you know. So, and that, you know, Site Ready Solutions is going to hopefully go on for a very long time. And it's great, honestly. You know, it's like you can see I kind of start getting passionate about it, you know. But it's it's, you know, I want people to know that this is a great opportunity for people to get involved. And there's let's hope there's other people out there that got some other great ideas how we can really challenge the whole skills gap. And I think just bring some action to it. You know, we can talk, we can put posts on social media, but let's go and get on and do it, you know. And that's really what we're doing. And I think, you know, what we set up with this this podcast as well, which is, you know, it's like associated really with what we're doing. And, you know, your journey in this, Sam, you know, I think you're going to be a great host in this podcast, and hopefully we're going to get lots more guests coming through that are going to talk about their story. You know, this is all of our opportunities to really make that change. You know, we can moan, or we can make the change ourselves, you know.
Well, thank you. If you had every apprentice or every potential trainee in the country and you've got them for 30 seconds, you've got an earpiece right in their ear, what would you tell them?
Oh, yeah, make sure you come back tomorrow. You know, stay away from that. The club you don't want to go to is the Monday club, you know. But I think someone probably would have said it on one of the Hod Talks. Be a sponge, you know. Try to, you know, go there. Remember that today, you know, you're going to learn something new. What is it you're going to learn? And I do that every day now as an elder, as it were. But, you know, how quickly can I learn? What can I learn from that person? And just do that bit extra, you know, sort of kind of show up and shine a little bit. And you do that probably by asking questions, being kind. You know, if you're kind, the kindness will come back your other way. But, yeah, just don't be scared to ask a question. You know, be confident. And it's easy for me to say that now, you know. People come from lots of different backgrounds, challenges and stuff. But, yeah, you know, you've got it's in your own grasp, but you know, the last thing you want to do is not turn up. We're, you know, in bricklaying, if the weather's rough, you're not going to work. So if the weather's good, you've got to be out there, you know. And it's like, it'd be too easy to go, this bed's comfortable, I'm not going to go to work. But you're not going to get anywhere with that. So, you know, you've got to, it's not about working hard, you've got to work smart. If the work's there, go and work. Learn as quickly as you can. I think it's easier to learn these days in bricklaying because there's so many great role models out there. You know, the great thing about social media or YouTube is if you want to learn to lay bricks, just go and download a good video. There's so many really good people that know how to lay bricks, and they share their stuff and just watch that. So, you know, success leaves clues. You know, I said I was very lucky that I got taught by some great people, but there's still really good people out there. So yeah, simple stuff, I guess. You know, nothing too complicated in that.
And it's become like a last question on the podcast at the moment, but if you could listen or watch anyone on the HODCAST, who would it be and why?
Well, I'm probably going to have to take two people. I don't know, that's not necessarily wrong. No, we'll go one. We're going to go one. So, relevant to our industry, we Nick Knowles. So I met Nick on the DIY SOS, and he was really inspiring. You know, on camera he was great, fantastic. You know when the green light or the red light, whatever it goes, you know, he's bang on it, right, bang on message. But off camera was amazing, so inspiring, and being in that environment with, and again that was part of where I am now with my journey about helping others. Being involved in that whole DIY SOS thing was amazing because, you know, we have a group of builders, a band of builders coming together to do something together, really, and no one wanted to get paid. It was crazy, you know. And but Nick was so inspiring talking to people, and yeah, I'd love him to be in the studio, you know. And the only thing is, if he is, probably I'll be the host that day, you know. So, but we'll do a joint thing. But yeah, so Nick Knowles, and you know, that would be the one I'd like to see.
I'm interested who your second one was now.
Well, yeah, again, because I'm always going to be greedy. So I love podcasts. You know, I listen to a lot, and Rich Roll is probably he's my favourite, and probably the Rich Roll podcast was a big influence in my alcohol-free journey because he's probably one of, you know, you had Andy Ramage on there as well as that. The very first podcast I heard with Andy Ramage was being interviewed with Rich Roll. So either of those, really, you know, I think, you know, we could probably get Andy on here, okay, because, you know, he's fairly local, and that'd be a great one. But, you know, Rich Roll would be amazing. And you know, again, with podcasts, and there's so much out there, so it doesn't matter what you're interested in. You know, just go and listen to people, you know, and sort of, and it gives you the opportunity to stand on the shoulder of giants, as it were, you know. And I listen to these podcasts every week that influence me, and yes, it's great, you know. So Rich Roll, I suppose, would be the ultimate dream. But I think it's a nice question you asked there, Sam. And you know, I'm lucky that I'm working with you, I guess, on the production of this podcast a little bit. And you know, we've got some ideas about guests, but it's nice that people come in and maybe, you know, like say, see who they want to be on. You know, this is what it's all about, really. You know, sharing. You know.